Welcome back to the Aetos Aviation Network podcast. This is our first podcast of 2026, and we are so glad that you are back to join us. We have a special guest today, a man named Jonathan Sanders. He has been so generous to donate some of his time to come talk airplanes and talk faith with us. Jonathan had an extensive career in the military that took him serving all over the world, mainly in the maintenance side of aviation. So we're so excited to get to pick his brain about what that was like. And then as he transitioned from the military to civilian life, he got into the cockpit and decided to start flying airplanes. So, Jonathan, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We always like to start asking our guests, how did you get involved in aviation, and where did kind of the bug bite you, and how did you make it into military aviation?
Well, when I was a kid, my stepbrother, for his high school graduation, was gifted a private pilot certificate. So he used to take me on all the rides after he got his private to stay current. So as a young kid, I started flying and realized that, oh my God, I love this. So when I joined the military, I spent time walking around the earth, and I was like, I think I'd rather fly on this wonderful place. And then they offered me the opportunity to go work on them, which as a mechanical man, I was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. And I can be a pilot afterwards. And I was told that, sure, yeah. Sign right here and become a mechanic, and then we'll make you a pilot eventually. So then I did that for, I guess, eight and a half years.
So that's what got you started in the military.
In the military, yes, sir. Well,
And
yeah.
then you were originally stationed in Hawaii. Is that right?
Yeah, I joined originally as an infantryman, and then after 4 years in Hawaii and all the walking we did, I realized that I would much rather not walk to places, and let's fly to them. It's way quicker. It doesn't hurt my feet as much. So then when I joined aviation, I stayed there for quite a while, and really enjoyed. I was in an intermediate maintenance company in Fort Hood, Texas, and was able to recover multiple aircraft around Texas. That we saved the government about 36 million in recovered helicopters. So,
What did that look like, the helicopter recoveries?
uh, typically we'd get the alert, we'd deploy out of Fort Hood and go to wherever it was. We had a gearbox failure on a Chinook, so we were able to get down, do a field repair, and then actually fly that Chinook back to Fort Hood. And we had a Blackhawk that we had to come down and do a mild disassemble and put it on a trailer and come back because it had impacted a little harder, but it was good times.
So you were out there in the field repairing helicopters and then flying them back to where they belong.
Right. And if I can't fix it, I'm going to give you a new one. So
You were so you were doing that for a little bit, and then you said about 8 years.
yeah, eight and a half.
Mm-hmm. Then you went back into the infantry. Tell me a little bit about your time there.
Well, the infantry is a very tight knit group. Typically, you guys are the front lines of any war. So when people talk about, the movies, all the hype where everybody's like, "Oh man, that guy's incredibly violent," and it's like that's the infantry guys. Those are the guys that are right up front, either at the front lines or beyond the front lines, behind enemy lines. Uh, you're the guys on the ground. So aviation flies over us and protects us. Infantry guys are the ones that occupy territory. So, and I was blessed to have the platoon sergeant job and multiple light infantry scout platoons, and that's kind of where I finished my whole career, was with light infantry scouts.
How was that experience?
The experience was definitely intense. I mean, as a platoon sergeant, your job is being bullets and band-aids. So making sure everybody has what they need to go where they are, and you're responsible for putting them where they need to be the most effective. So, I mean, you have the platoon sergeant, a platoon leader that kind of run everything, uh, leading combat, going on patrols, delegating. The big thing I think in once you get to a certain level is the delegation of duties and learning learning to believe in everyone else.
I want to can I go back to, so when you say, when you were leading teams and going and extracting downed aircraft, downed helicopters, are these helicopters that have been involved in accidents and crashes, and you guys are literally rebuilding these helicopters and bringing them back to Fort Hood?
Yes. Yeah. So the Black Hawk, I believe, was a wire strike, and the Chinook was a gearbox failure with a hard landing as it auto rotated to the ground.
Wow. So, and you were leading an entire team to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. We had a team of, I think, 4 or 5 mechanics for each one of those.
Okay. What was that like, leading a team where you're kind of going in to a mess, right? That you have no idea what you're about to walk up on probably most of the time, and you're trusting your entire team to, hey, we're going to piece this thing back together, and then we're going to safely get a downed aircraft back to a maintenance facility where we can fix it up and redeploy it. What were some of the lessons you learned leading a team like that?
No matter how much knowledge you have, it's not enough. And I've, it's funny because I feel blessed that when one of our team would come up short on a fix, another one had the answer. And so I was blessed to have a group of soldiers that really cared about what they did, and they cared so much that they learned about other people's jobs too. So, and I think that's important in so many different things in life. Is, I always say, hey, I don't want you to do anybody else's job. I want you to just do your job, and you're going to excel. Like, focus on your job. Once you become a master at your job, learn another person's job. You may never do it, but you know it, and it's never failed me.
Yeah, that's so at this point where you're leading a crew, and you guys are rebuilding downed helicopters. Where's your faith walk at this point with God, and where's your relationship with the Lord as you're leading this team?
There's always a kind of, I can't say a ritual, but there is kind of a ritual where you get up and you get ready. And I always ask for, it's weird to say, but I always ask for the wisdom to make the right decision in situations. And so my initial prayer is always, God, grant me the wisdom to make it through this day with no casualties, because we have no idea. Once again, we don't know what we're walking into. And so honestly, I think that faith is so very important because it gives you the spiritual hand to get up and do what you have to do. And when you have to take those steps that may not be safe, you know that you're not alone. And imparting that onto my guys, I've gotten multiple call signs uh, because of my faith. My favorite one, I think, was when I was in Iraq. The first time was Shepherd. So,
That's awesome. I love that. What were some ways that you would stay grounded in your faith, whether you were, which I will get to later, your deployment to Iraq and your time in the infantry, but just in your early military career and as you were going through it, what were some habits that you developed to stay grounded in your faith and connected to the Lord?
so when I was growing up, I we were in one of those church every Sunday, and grandma's house after for lunch, and I mean, it was always like that. But as a very analytical person, I always I always had questions, and my leaders at the time, church leaders, never were able to answer the questions that I had to a standard that I thought was correct. So for, I'd say, the first probably 5 years of my military career, I read every single book I could find on every single religion I could find and go, wow, wow, okay. And you look at it and go, and I always come back to Christianity because that's how I was raised. And then the more I look at Christianity in comparison to all the other ones, it logically makes sense and it answers all the questions I have as a neuroscientist, which is what my degree's in. So it makes, to me, it's, oh, this is science-backed book from 5,000 years ago. It's like, oh, and looky there. Everything we found so far in science is affirming everything that we as Christians have known our entire lives. Like the moment we read the first 3 words in the Bible, we knew it was true. And then it took science till I remember not too long ago when they're like, yeah, the universe is expanding. It's like, we know it had a beginning in the beginning. So thank y'all for catching up.
Yeah.
So to me, it's been a cornerstone, I would say, in everything I've done, even when I didn't realize it was why I was doing things. So I've been very blessed and very, very, very lucky in my entire military career for injuries, deaths, bombs, and everything. Because and truthfully, my guys had asked me multiple times to pray with them before we left because when we went out on missions, we came home alive every time I prayed. So
Wow, that's so cool. Do you have any favorite scientific factoids about the Bible and about Christianity that are your personal favorites that you want to share?
scientifically, I think you can look at just if you look at the Big Bang Theory, we can Genesis 1:1. If we look at Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning there was Word." There had to be a start, and the Bible always says, "Well, if there's a start, then everything else makes sense." But there has to be something to start it. Well, the Big Bang could never have happened if the entire galaxy's mass was 1 micron, one portion of one atom heavier. It never would have happened. It would have imploded on itself if it's heavier, or exploded like to oblivion if it was just a little bit lighter. One tiny microscopic particle. It's like, okay. And then you look at Earth. Just look at everything on Earth. A single-celled amoeba, if you took the DNA chain and you started writing that DNA chain on paper, that chain would go to the moon and back 4 times. That's one cell. And we have trillions in our body that can do the same thing. It's like, and to me, to have something that complex means there had to be, as a scientist, there had to be a designer. I cannot believe, as any atheist would be, is, oh, it just happened by chance. Like this computer that I'm using right now just happened. It happened by chance. Because if you don't believe in something, like there has to be a creator. And the Bible has answered every question that I've ever had about creation if I look at it again. Like I know the first time I read Genesis, it didn't mean what it does to me now. Because now I can look at all the things that I've studied and go, oh, it's right there. And so I feel that if anyone could ever show me a scientific problem where the Bible was wrong, like ever show me every dispute one of the stories scientifically, I'll get behind it. But it has never happened in my short 50 years of life. So
It's incredible how, like you were saying before, scientists have had their theories of the universe and the world, and, they've come up with all of these things as to explain the earth. And like you said, the Bible explained it thousands of years ago, and we're just now catching up. We're just now getting to the point where, oh, there's actually something to this Bible thing and to what God was writing in those words, that we could have just started right there and made things much simpler.
Well, it always, I think, to me, it's been a growing. I mean, there's been growing pains. I mean, for a lot of years, I was religious, but not faithful. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I wasn't attending church. I wasn't doing doing the things that I probably should have as a strong Christian, but I never broke the values, if that makes sense. Where I think the values that we were taught as Christians, like, okay, well, I wasn't doing that, but I also wasn't going out of my way. I wasn't using the Great Commission. I literally wasn't saying, hey, why are you not saved? How can I pray for you? And the growth of loss, I think, when you realize that you're at the bottom of the barrel, you're going through a lot of stuff. You're going through, uh, I mean, now I can look back and say, I might have been PTSD, but I hid in a bottle. And when you hit that bottom of where you've ever been in your life, and you look up and you go, how am I alone? And then you literally look on your kitchen table and there's a Bible. I was like, well, let me start this. And you read the first page, and then 1,000 pages later, you're still reading and you're still learning, and you feel like you need to go back and read it 17 more times. So, wow, how's faith has changed me to a point where I can look at life through a completely different lens, because I've seen terrible, terrible things being done in the name of a religion, and know that my God has never said, do terrible things. It's like the honesty and real heart or spirit of, to me, of the Bible is, when you read it and follow it, it will change you. Like, it can't help you. It can't help but change you.
Yeah,
So,
that's powerful. So we've been catching bits and pieces of where you've been and kind of where you've gone and things you've experienced. So I kind of want to tie it all together. So you spent time in the maintenance side working on helicopters, putting them back together, which is kind of mind blowing. And I'm, as a pilot myself, I'm very thankful for guys like you that can walk into a field, put something back together, and make it fly again. That's pretty amazing.
well, if it makes you feel better, every time I fix an airplane, I'll crawl in it and fly with you.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. A lot better. So, and then you go from there and you go into the infantry. And if I understand right, you have some deployments in there. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, kind of going into a new fraternity of guys in a kind of different atmosphere, and where you went and what you saw?
Uh, I don't know if I could tell you exactly where I went, but I can tell you I was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan for both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Uh, I spent time in war from 2006 to the end of 2010. The Army had the blessing of sending me to 31 different countries in my tours. Uh, and I spent a little bit of time fighting in wars. I have to go back and review the numbers, but I know there were well over 300 missions that we went on. And as a light infantry scout platoon, the majority of times we were behind enemy lines, or or going up to enemy lines and embedded in them. So we were right next to the bad guys, and we don't know who the bad guys are. So Absolutely wonderful time. If you like stress, please do it. It's amazing. But there were some really good times. You meet a lot of good people. There were some fantastic people that I met in Iraq. Some Iraqi. There were some wonderful local nationals that I met in Afghanistan that were able to provide me with some of the best black tea I've ever had in my life, and a fresh chai that was absolutely fantastic. But I mean, I think, and I'm going to relate this back to Bible studies. Is no matter where you go, there are good people. The majority of bad people you find anywhere, there's not that many of them. But figuring out who are the bad people and who are the good people is one of the most difficult things for any organization to do, whether it be military or police or anybody. But trying to find the good in each person is a wonderful thing to try to do, but I would say it's probably one of the most difficult, depending on how much experience you have and how much faith you have in humanity and people, because they can see it. I mean, if you walk up to one person, they know, okay, this guy's really strong, and as soon as you start talking to them, they're like, oh, something else is behind this guy. It's like, yeah, I got a huge big brother. He's enormous. And when you have that friend next to you, it makes you walk a little taller, and the enemy knows it. And whether it's the enemy on the ground or the enemy in spirit, is if you put your faith where it needs to be, just like your feet, you put them where they need to be, you're going to keep going forward. But I don't know. I think it has to be, it's one of those things that you need to refresh as often as possible.
Yeah. So, John, I want to hear from you. You said you got some of these call signs um, that were given to you, off of biblical context, one being the shepherd. That's a great compliment. Where did you get those from? And, what were you doing as a leader to try to embody Christ and to try to spread his love and lead with his love and strength and wisdom? What were some things that you were taking with you at that point to embody him in the best way you could?
Okay, so the one I'll start with shepherd. I think that was my second or third call sign throughout. I think I want to say my second year in combat. But shepherd started because my guys that I was doing missions with, I was transitioned to a different role. And when my guys had called up to me and like, hey, Sergeant Sanders, I need you to come down here and pray with us. I was like, okay. It's like, because Sergeant, every time you come, we all make it back alive. And it kind of took me aback. And I looked over, and my company commander just happened to be standing right next to me. And he looked at me. He's like, "Go!" And so I beat him out down there, linked up with my guys, and I was like, "Okay, well, who all wants to come to the prayer?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let's do it like we always do. Let's go to the front truck. We'll get ready." And I remember I bowed my head, and then I glanced up, and it wasn't three or four guys. It was every single one of my guys, to a man, was standing there with their heads bowed. And it slapped me in the face. I was like, this is faith. This is what it means. All I did was pray. And now all my guys want to follow that. They wait for me to do whatever they want to. And all I do is pray for a successful mission and peace. And it started then. And then one of my guys comes up to me and says, hey, we all call you Shepherd, right? I was like, what? I was like, did you guys give me a call sign and not tell me? I was like, I'm telling you now. And so I had a name tag made, and that was put on my body armor, and that's what I answered to while we're doing it. So
I love that. I think that's such a powerful example of how important it is, and also how we can forget the example that we set, the influence that we can have as Christians on those around us. Something as simple as praying to ourselves or praying out loud alone. Other people can pick up on that and can be influenced and impacted by that. Um, the way that you treat others, the way that you love others, and your language, uh, and the confidence that you walk with, as you spoke earlier, that can really help others see the good and pick apart the good from the bad, as you were mentioning earlier. And I think that's something we forget, is that when you walk with the Holy Spirit and you walk with the strength that He gives you and the confidence that He gives you, how much of an impact and an influence that can have on those around you. I think that's a great point of how important that is to take that with you everywhere and be confident in Him because we have Him with us.
totally agree. And it's humbling the first time for me. I remember the first time I felt like I was protected, like God was protecting me. I remember we had just gotten in an ambush, and I had just taken my helmet off, and I don't remember if I set it down or I had it in my hand, and it felt like a brush of wind went by my head, and I heard a snap, and I don't know how to explain it, but I looked at my platoon leader, and I just screamed ambush, and I looked over for my backpack that I had just set down 5 feet away, and it looked like it was 10 miles away, and started running when I heard the first crack of rifle fire. And that was the first crack of the bullet that went right by my head. And we were in an open field. They had us dead to rights. We were exhausted. We'd been out there all day. We were low on water. We had a lot of ammo because we hadn't met anybody, but we were low on water. We were low on food. Everybody was tired. It was exhausted. It was hot, and we were done. And they had us. And I remember when I hit that ditch and looking up and going, God, get us out of here. And 100% of my guys lived through that contact. And I don't know how any of us lived through it. And well, let me rephrase. We shouldn't have lived through it, but I'm pretty sure somebody's like, nope, nope. And looking back, I had one of my guys that I'd known since he was a private. I won't give his name out, but I will say we called him Twitch. Uh, and Twitch was running at me, and he fell down. And I was screaming at him to get up, and I'm sure there was one or two curse words in that as a platoon sergeant. And he jumped up, and he comes in, and I put him where he needed to be. And we got out of there. When we got back to our base, he comes up to me, and he's holding his helmet. And one of the things I always told my guys was like, guys, I wear this armor because I have to, and I hate it every single pound of it until it saves my life. And then I love every single ounce of it. And he walks in, and he's holding his helmet like it's a baby, just holding it out in front of him. And he goes, hey, Sergeant, I love my helmet. And I mean, I've known this kid since he was 17. I've known him for, it seemed like, his entire life. And I told him, hey, come here, let me see. And the bullet that knocked him over, it was a big bullet, I think well over 30 caliber, and it hit the back of his helmet, and ran all the way down that side of the helmet. He had a groove probably about 9 inches long, and you could tell how big the bullet was. And it literally tripped him. He literally told me, he goes, "Sergeant, I thought I tripped." And we don't know if they were shooting at him or they were shooting at me. But I was like, wow, thank you. And Twitch came home, and his mom came up to me and thanked me for bringing her son home. I'm sure she doesn't know that story, but well, she might now. But uh, yeah, so I was able to bring him home, and when you feel the words, and then you feel why did I turn left? I have no idea why I turned left. And then you think about it, and you're like, there's no reason for me to do that. There was no reason for me to do 5 different things during that. How did I know? And I always look to faith. There's no reason that I should have made it home alive. The amount of time, the amount of time I spent in combat, I believe that they said that my percentage to come home alive was around 11%. And I took 166 men into combat, and I brought 166 men back. Now, they might be missing some of their mind, but I'm really not sure how much they had going in because they volunteered to go to war. So, but they're all alive. And people always ask me, it's like, well, what is your greatest accomplishment in the military? It's like, I brought 166 boys home alive. And, I guarantee there's people out there who absolutely hate me. I know for a while there were bounties on me in war zones. And I know there are soldiers that I served with that probably don't respect the way I led them. Okay, I brought you home. What matters to me is we never failed our mission. We never failed to do what they asked us to do. And we never broke our values. It's like, if you don't like me because of that, okay, I'll own that. It's like, you're not the power I have to answer to. And, I've had multiple people come up to me after war, and after they've thought it out and have said, "Hey, thank you." And you know what? When a mother comes up and says, "Thank you for bringing my son home alive," that's all I need. That's all I need. I have no idea where he is now. I think that's the saddest part about the Army is once you get out or once you leave a unit, you rarely keep in contact with the majority of people you knew. So it's like your brothers, and then all of a sudden your brothers have different brothers, and you move on. So
Yeah. Wow. Man, it's so evident the hand of God on you and on your life and on your leadership and how he walked with you through a war zone. And while you were talking and telling that story, and gosh, I'd love to hear more just of God's faithfulness in such a harsh environment, an environment where the enemy and evil is basically running free. And you, and I'm sure a select few others, were lights for the kingdom and protecting men that probably didn't even share your same values or beliefs, and but God had his hand on them because he had his hand on you. And I was just reminded of James chapter 1, one of my favorite scriptures. In the Passion Translation, it says, "My fellow believers, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up in you the power of endurance. And then as your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection in every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking." And my question to you And I have so much respect and so much curiosity to men like you and women like you that have deployed to war zones and have seen quite literally the worst of humanity. What's it like walking with God in the midst of a war zone and staying committed and, like in James chapter 1, seeing the difficulties and having your endurance grown? And as you walk out of that, you can see God in the midst of pure evil and know that he was with you and he was walking with you.
I think the toughest realization for me to start the walk was the moment you open the door and you feel the incredible heat of the desert, and it makes you question, where am I? Why am I here? And when you see, I was very blessed. I got to see a lot of the places from the Bible, and I mean, I walked through an excavation of the city of Ur of the Chaldeans. So I got to see where Abram was born and Abraham died, and walk through it. And when you walk into a room and every hair stands up on your neck and you're just like, oh, I have no idea what this is I always look up and go, what are you trying to tell me? And then you take pictures and you look and you look and you realize very quickly that you're surrounded by a lot of people who don't want you there. And they don't want you there for any reason other than the color of your skin or the color of your uniform, because the majority of them have been oppressed their entire lives by people in uniforms, or told that Americans are terrible people. And then you have the one little girl come up and she asks you for anything, and you hand her like your candy from your MRE. I think it was an oatmeal cookie bar, and she grabs it and runs away. And then the next day, her and her brother come up and they'll tell you anything you want to know about that entire environment, but they're just innocent kids. They're God's children. They just don't know it. And you watch them grow up and watch them learn. Uh,
How did you keep your faith so strong just in a war zone, and just how did you see God through all of that and stay close
you
to
know,
him?
yeah, it's funny. I've got it somewhere. I just need to find it. I had a devotional that I used to carry in my uniform pocket, and every time we'd stop, I'd sit and read it. And then I had a Bible and I had a Bible and a devotional with me 24/7. And I can say the moment you get your first contact, all your belief just scatters the wind. It's like throwing glitter up as far as every emotion you have, everything. You don't know what's going to happen or how you're going to react. And it's weird to express. I don't even know how to express it. But the first time that first bomb went off, it almost felt like I was just wrapped. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It like a cocoon of safety. Everything left. I mean, the only thing I had was sight. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't say anything. I was just there, right, living through it. And then everything started to slowly come back. And now that I look back on it, it's like, oh, okay. But at the time, it felt like I don't even know, like a bubble of protection, because we walked out of that with no scratches. and it should have killed half of us. Like, didn't even have a scratch. And getting done, it was a convoy, and getting out of the convoy and jumping out and counting my guys and getting thumbs up from 100% of them. And it's like, how? I have no idea how we made it. And then realizing, it's like, why is my pocket warm? And it could have been that my leg was up against the transmission. It could have been anything. But it's like, my immediate thought is, why is my Bible warm? And I could tell you 1,000 different stories of you wake up and what's the one thing that's there? Like, everything else is destroyed and your Bible's there. I don't know. It hits home when you're there and it's like, oh, wow. Okay. Now where do we need to go? And I've never had the blessing of God has never, to my knowledge, God has never come up and said words in my ear. I've never been blessed with that. But I'm going to tell you something. There have been absolute 100% signs when you feel a terror roll through you and you have no idea why, and you turn left when they told you to go right, and right blows up. And I have to say, there's no doubt in my mind that me and mine were protected. God watched over us because he knew we were doing the right thing in the wrong place. So, truthfully, I can honestly say that as you go through years of war, at a certain point, logic doesn't make sense. It's like there's no reason that we should still be able to do this. There's no we've been in so many different hundreds and thousands of miles of territory. Somebody, even a lucky shot, should have gotten through. And to me, knowing that my guys had come up to me and said, I believe because you do. It's like, oh, that's what you meant by the Great Commission. Yeah, go out and tell them and live by the example. It's like, do what you told them to do. Do it and let them watch you. So I think that I grew more in my faith because as I was growing in my faith, I was also being lifted up by not only the Spirit pointing me in the right direction, but also by my guys and their faith in my guidance. So, I mean, I'm not a pastor, but if that's what they feel, I get it why they do it. I totally get it why they do it, because when you're able to help people by just being a good person, doing what you're supposed to do, and by what you're supposed to do, I don't mean what the military ordered you to do, but as a good person, doing what the Bible tells you to do. And I mean, inherently, I don't think the military is for everyone. I don't think anybody, I always used to say that it's like, hey, you know what? Not everybody can, not everybody will, but we can, and we do. Now let's do it the right way. And so, for the volunteer force that we have in the United States military, I can honestly say it's a wonderful collection of American citizens, and from all walks of life, from the rich to the poor, from the terribly evil to the terribly good. And you'll find every kind of person you could ever want to see in every single platoon. And you will find that you are drawn to the good ones.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we believe because you believe. That's such a different perspective on the Great Commission, but I think it's a great explanation of when you put your faith in Jesus and people see that and then they watch you do it, they believe because you believe. And that's an incredible perspective. As we move on and continue, so you obviously had an intense deployment, and as you were transitioning out of the military, God brought you back into aviation, sparked your interest, or gave you an opportunity that you were able to take. Tell us a little bit about that and how that has dominoed effect itself into your life today.
Well, when I was being told that you're medically no longer able, you're no longer able to fight, or you're no longer able to be a warrior with the U.S. Army, I had to make a decision on what I wanted to do. And I had gone to school for pre-med and science, and at one point in my life, I made a decision that, you know what? I don't know if I want to sit in a lab. I don't know if I want to go live in a hospital. And I guess the old feeling of, man, you know what? I sure would like to fly. It's like, and so I went down to flight school in Addison, Texas. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to walk in this door because they had a little tiny sign that said, learn to fly. And when I walked in the door, I said, hey, I'd like to learn to fly airplanes. And I'm like, okay, well, when do you want to start? It's like, how about right now? And I took a discovery flight right then. They just happened to have a plane instructor ready. And it was so absolutely amazing to get in a plane and go. And so I fell in love all over again with aviation, with flying. It immediately brought me back to my childhood, flying with my brother, and going, yeah, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. And when I found out that the Army would help pay for a lot of it, I was like, oh, I can really do this. It's like, yeah. It's like, let's do this. Yeah, heck yeah. Woo. Because that's a big bill. So it's interesting because at that flight school, I met one of my very, very dear friends, and we were studying for our private license, our PPL. And he had asked me, he goes, hey, well, do you want to come over and study? And we'll try to get all the airspace and everything figured out. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. I thought, we'll work on flight planning. We'll do everything we need to, whatever we're short on. And he goes, hold on. So he took a call while he was sitting in his car. And when he said goodbye, he said, hey, and bless you guys. And I was like, what? He goes, hey, you want to get together this Sunday? I was like, sure. He says, well, I go to church in the morning, and then we can get together after that. I was like, okay. He goes, what are you doing Sunday? Nothing. Because at the time I wasn't going to church at all. And he said, well, why don't you come to church with us? And my immediate reaction was, it's like, wow, I'm really in awe of this guy. And I was like, and the hesitation was enough. He's from New Jersey, and he looked at me and goes, what, are you scared? I'm like, no, I'm not scared. And then the pride in my chest, I'm like, no. You swell up. I'm not scared. I'll go to church right now. And so he goes, okay, I'll meet you there. Here's the address. Here's the time. I was like, ruh-roh, what did I just volunteer for? So I remember packing up that morning, and I had got in my car and I was driving. I think it was about a 45-minute drive for me. And I showed up at this church, had no idea who anybody was, like no idea anybody at all. And the moment I walked to the front door, it was a smile. And as soon as the door opened and the air conditioning hit me, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And then I met Paul, and it's like, hey, okay. He goes, come sit with us. Okay. And a decade later, I'm still at that church, and my faith has grown. I think I became an ordained minister a year or two after that, uh, and then have been walking closer and closer and closer to where I hope I need to be with the guidance of the good book. I can honestly say that a couple years ago I realized while I was reading, they used to do an annual thing at the church where we read the entire Bible in the first 3 days of the year, like 24 hours a day. Like you go in, you can volunteer for a couple hours, you can just read the Bible for a couple hours. I was like, oh, okay. And it was start cover to cover. And while I was reading, I don't remember which chapter, but I want to say it was part of the Old Testament. And uh, I thought to myself, I don't think I've ever read the Bible cover to cover just by myself. I've read it in chapters, but never cover to cover. So I did that and started, and I haven't stopped. I was like, you read a chapter and then you'll go back and read 3 chapters, and then you read and you go back, and it has opened my mind 100% to it's a living word. It's like if you read it once and then you read it again, you're going to get something different out of the exact same thing you just read. And then you do it again, and every single time you read it, there's something more. There's more knowledge embedded in those holy words that to me have always been a mystery that is suddenly unraveling to go, that's what you meant. Okay. And it's like, why did you write down all these names? I have no idea. And then you read it again, and it's like, oh, now that makes sense. So,
John, I love your story. I love all of your stories. I feel like your your story is such a great example of, like you were saying, your guys believed because you believe, and you living out your faith and you living your walk with Christ, showing others the love of Christ, is just such an encouragement and something that we can all do. We're obviously not all deployed. We may not be going through the struggles, the trials, the intensity that you faced, but we in our daily lives walking with Christ and just living through him and praying for that wisdom, like you said, every single day. Our decisions that we make are not going to be as impactful as walking left instead of right and missing an explosion, but these minor decisions that the Lord can lead us to make can be as impactful as leading someone to Christ and changing their life in that way. And so I thank you for sharing your stories and sharing how, if we lean on Christ and we walk with him daily and ask for him to bring us wisdom, the impact and the influence that can have on others. I think your testimony and your stories are very powerful, and I thank you for sharing those with us today.
you're very welcome. I'm glad my stories were hopefully informative and entertaining. Uh, I can honestly say that I truly believe that everybody walks through a war every day of their life. We all have decisions to make that impact our spirit every single day. Uh, the enemy is always next to us every day, and so is God. And I'll tell you, I'll take that every day of the week. And it's like when you wake up every day, I feel blessed every single day I wake up. Every day I have to, because I know I shouldn't be here, but he wants me here to do something. And I love that everybody is struggling and everybody is going through something, because it gives me something to relate to and go, oh, so when I meet someone new, my first thought is, what kind of war are they going through? Because I may not understand it, but he does. And my only job in the world is to try to help them in any way I can. So that's just my opinion.
Well, Jonathan, like Drew said, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time with us. And it's such a cool story to hear how you encountered, a friend at a flight school, and he's the one that got you back into church, and to see God's hand and see God use him to bring you back into the place where God wanted you, and then to see how your life is flourishing now. And it's so encouraging to hear, because at Aetos, that's our whole goal. That's our whole goal, is to put people into places in aviation, like a flight school or a maintenance hangar or any other place, and have people, like you said earlier, they want to believe because they see you believe and they see you living your life with God. And so, just to wrap this message up, I just wanted to ask if you would close us out in prayer, and like I said, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time.
Well, and I'll say it again. Thank you so much for the invite. I've have great respect for Drew, and I've I think that everyone has a voice. Maybe we don't need to listen to everybody. There are nothing in this world but teachers, and we have to make the choice which one we want to listen to. And I think we have the opportunity and ability to listen to everybody, but we don't have to believe everything they believe. So, uh, gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you for the wonderful opportunity I've had to speak with Drew and Pierce and tell a small part of my tale in my walk back to you and stronger into your arms. I thank and I pray that everyone that watches this uh, gains some insight and walks a little bit closer to you, with their head held a little bit higher with the strength you give them. I ask that we have the wisdom, uh, courage, and faith to move everything we need to closer and closer toward you. And Lord, bless all of our enemies, that they may also find their way closer to you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen.
Amen.